Hey everybody, this is Mr. Longo and I'm back, and this time we are going to talk about pie charts, which we briefly talked about in the intro to data video. And what we're going to be doing is kind of talking about how do we create a pie chart to represent categorical data. So really, a pie chart is just a circular chart where you have different sizes of slices in that pie that represent the amount or the relative frequency of categorical data. So in the previous video that we talked about relative frequency and how to find a relative frequency. So remember, to find a relative frequency, all you have to do is divide the actual frequency by the total number of options. So to find the relative frequency, this is something you should be able to do. So why don't you quickly pause the video and find your relative frequencies, because it's something you should know how and it'll give you a chance to practice. So pause it, give it a try, and click play when you're ready. So remember, to find relative frequencies, the first thing you need is the total. So 14, 25, 4, and 7 is going to give you a total of 50 students. Now again, this data represents how many sports students play. So again, this is not something that we would consider numerical, and here's why. You might have a student that plays 3 sports. So that doesn't mean there's 3 students, it's just one student that plays 3 different sports. If you have another student that plays 2 sports, that's not 2 students. So right now, all we've talked about so far is 2 students in particular, but they play 5 total sports. So this is in the range of categorical data. So you just have to be careful with that type of stuff. So relative frequency, again, we just take the frequency and divide it by the total. So if you would have completed the chart and had 0.28 for students that play 3 sports and 0.50 for students that play 2, 0.08 for students that play 1, and then 0.14 for students that play no sports, you would be correct. And then if you were to use the total, added those all up to check to make sure you are correct, we would have 1. So that's it. So now how do we compare this with the size of a slice in our pie? Well, we should remember from geometry that circles are 360 total degrees. So in order to find the slice size of a pie chart, all you have to do is multiply your relative frequency times 360 degrees. So to find the slice for students that play 3 sports, you would multiply 0.28 times 360 degrees, and that would give you a central angle of 100.8 degrees. Okay, now again, this is the central angle. And we will talk about that again when we start creating our pie chart. And of course, if you were to do 0.5 times 360, you would end up with 180 degrees to represent students that play 2 sports. 0.08 would give you 28.8 degrees. And then finally, 0.14 would give us 50.4 degrees. And if you were to add all of those up, you would have 360 degrees, which is what we want to happen. Because again, circles have central angle total of 360 degrees. So one thing that's helpful when you're creating any type of graph is to have a legend. Now I've just created a legend here that says students that play 3 sports will be represented with blue, and then of course 2 would be green. You can do dots and dashes. You can organize it any way you want. You might just want to have a legend so people that are reading your pie chart can understand what it's representing. So now what we have to do is create the different slices. So I find it easiest if you just start with the biggest one. So 180 degrees we know is half a circle. So that would just be a horizontal line or a vertical line or a diagonal line. Basically, you just create a diameter. Another after that would be 100.8 degrees. So obviously that's going to be a little bit more than 90. And then we have 28.8 and 50.4, so that would be one of them has to be smaller than the other. We're not going to take out some sort of a special measurement tool to measure your angles. That's absolutely not going to happen. And then after that, you would just color it in or decorate it to represent your legend. So really, you can do it anywhere you want from here. You can start smallest to biggest, whatever you want to start with. It's pretty easy to see that we have half a circle representing 2 sports, students that play 2 sports. So we would just kind of sketch that in with a color. I know sometimes you'll actually see the number written down. So you would see 25, which represents 25 students. But you just want to make sure your graph is easy to read. The next biggest slice would have been students that play 3 sports, and there were 14 of them. Again, you don't always have to write the numbers there. It's just if it helps you to understand your data. You could also put the relative frequency if that makes sense to you. Students that play only 1 sport, that's represented by our smallest slice. Remember, there were only 4 students. And then there are 7 students that don't play any sports at all. And that's how you create a pie chart. So then if you were looking at a pie chart, you would be able to read this easily. So type of questions you might have to answer is, what is the most likely outcome if you asked a student how many sports they played? Well, according to this pie chart, it would be 2 sports because there are 25 students, or a relative frequency of 0.5 that play 2 sports. Okay? So again, this video is to give you one of the options for understanding how to graph or organize categorical data. All right, this is Longo and I'm out. See you, bye.